Do the glasses bother you?
You're listening to Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guests. I gotta tell you, I had such a good time with Stephen Bauer last week, and we didn't barely get past Scarface, and he's had such a great career that I said, Stephen, will you come back? And he said, yes. And I think maybe it's because we're both Stevens with these, but he's originally an S.W.A.T. Anyway, Stephen Bauer's back. How you doing, Stephen?
Oh, hi. How you doing? It's great to be back. I had a lot that I just couldn't get it all out in that hour and something that we did. So I just felt like it was incomplete, and I owed you.
Oh, no, we have so much to talk about. First of all, I want to start, we ended, with the Rhythmics video, but with Scarface, and we talked about how you got the role. But once that movie started taking off, how did that affect your career? Because it was a huge hit.
With all due respect, it was not a huge hit when it was released. It drew audiences, but the audiences that were not paying attention to the reviews, which came out this day after, and which famously and wisely Al Pacino had told me, because I started already nearing the opening night or the release. I started in my head thinking, because I've always read movie critics. It's one of the things that educated me about film. Some of them are full of shit, and some of them actually know cinema. And so I started thinking, what are the reviews? I wonder what they're going to write. I wonder if they're going to see and get the subtle humor, the dark humor, the relationship between him and I, and then the sister, all those things. And I was speculating, and I told him, I said, nobody's ever done anything this bold and this violent, and the language, and we're the protagonists, but we're not the good guys. And so it's something that at first swallow is hard to digest, I think, for any audience, unless it's an audience that came to see that. And there were those, and they did come for 3 months. I think it made 37 million or something in the first 3 months, January, February, March, I think. But that was in spite of the reviews. And he told me, he said, I don't read them. I suggest you don't. And I said, oh, I'm just so curious. And he said, I'm telling you that the people who write those, most of them just want to make a name for themselves. They're just showing off, and they know nothing, and they're not really that interested in what you were trying to do or with the film. No, they just want to say, oh, I saw the movie, and I had to walk out. Right. So there were reviews like that the next day, and I made the mistake, and I looked. And I went to the office, I think, of Mr. Bergman, and they had collated already reviews from around the country, USA Today. But we got killed. I mean, slaughtered. And Al was right. Good thing he didn't read the reviews, because, especially for him and for Brian De Palma, the reviews were so nasty. Like, go back to acting school, Al. And with Brian De Palma, it's like sophomore violence and Hitchcock imitation, slow camera moves. Wow. And I got off scot-free. There, in a lot of reviews, they actually mentioned me as the one shining spot in the film is newcomer Stephen Bauer as his friend. And I was like, it's like, that's kind of like a bittersweet win for me. In my first film, I got reviewed, and they were good. But I couldn't, it was hard for me to live with that hatred. But the audiences that were there on opening night were going crazy. They had an overflow at the theater on Broadway in New York, and they had such an overflow of people that they had to also screen it in the theater beside it, in the two theaters on Broadway, and movie theaters, and that one was packed. And so when we left, people were buzzing all about it. There was people there. I heard that John Grisham, some people were like walking out. They're like disgusted. They're like, this is not where American movies should be going. Like, they're too good for it. And for a while, that was kind of the attitude of academics, movie people even. But it's interesting because did I tell you the story about Marty Scorsese?
No.
He was sitting in front of me. And I think Al was next to me. And Marty, in the middle of the film, or the first third of the film, turned back and he said to me, he said, wonderful work. You guys, it's really good, and great job. And I said, you really? Yeah. And he said, yeah, but Hollywood's going to hate it. Why? I said, and he said, because it's about them. and so they did. And I went for years. You asked, did my career take off? Well, a little bit, because I did get some notices. But the people in the industry then, a lot of young hotshots, trying to act like they knew everything about film production, and they wanted to be executives. And so if I'd get an appointment, people would want to see me, those young guys and executives. They want to see me because they saw the movie and they saw me, and I was just boom, on the screen, I came off real strong. And I remember going to this meeting for a movie, and I don't even remember. I walk in, and there are like 3 or 4 like yuppie execs, and they go, "Hey, Stephen Bauer, wow, man! Hey, we just wanted to meet you and talk to you about this movie, and your work was so good in that piece of shit film." And I said, "What'd you say?" And they said, come on, admit it. The movie's terrible. It's terrible. I wanted to say, how do you have the balls to say that to my face? And I just felt so maligned. It was, like I said, bittersweet, because I would get praise, but I wasn't getting the push of, well, we made this debut, and we should be looking at him for other films. I got my share of attention for other films, and I did, after a year of turning down similar roles in real shitty movies. They finally found this. My agents found this movie that Paramount was making. And this follows, it's like Scarface, my head was like turbulent, because I just thought, I can't believe they killed the movie. They killed the movie. And then there was a LA Times every year has the 100 best films of the 80s so far, and no Scarface. No Scarface, and there were some shit films on that list, and I was like, how could they? It's so nasty. It's like they want to be the ones to say, no, we don't go for that here. Bullshit. We don't approve of that kind of filmmaking. Are you kidding? And but we won out eventually because it took years. Oh, I was doing a movie. I got an offer to do a movie called Thief of Hearts at Paramount, and it was a glory project, and it was Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer's follow-up to the movie that made them immediate geniuses and got them an office at Paramount, Flashdance. Okay, but this was going to be like a really sultry, romantic, sexy thriller, with the leading man being me, being a handsome second story man, like a burglar in San Francisco who takes art. He takes art. He breaks in to rich people's homes when they're not there, and he takes basically just prized pieces that can be sold. And then he makes a mistake on one street right near the beginning, and he breaks into the home of these two people, and they have problems. And there's a picture. It's like a black and white picture that's made to look like a painting of the woman of the house, of the wife. And as I'm taking the stuff, grabbing parts, I see this, and it catches my eye, and I take it. And one of my rules is never take anything personal, never take any personal items. And the other thing I do is I stumble upon a safe and I can't really crack it, so I take it. It's from her side of the bed, a little safe. So, and then I find out that it's got these diaries, and she's writing about her unhappy life, and the man she would her dream man, she writes about it. And I'm reading this, and I'm kind of a lonely guy because I have trouble with relationships with shifty people and females that were not up. Anyway, he's a very he's got some integrity, some personal integrity, but he's a thief, and so he hasn't found the right woman, and suddenly he's found her, and she's writing about how unhappy she is. So he becomes her fantasy, her dream, and prepares to meet her by chance, to have a collision with her at a grocery store, and from then on, it's a really interesting film, but that wasn't supported by Paramount, even though it started with Don and Jerry. And Don and Jerry were so excited about me that they took me and my manager out to dinner to tell us that their next project was a top secret thing because it was involving the Pentagon and the Air Force, and it was going to be about fighter jocks training in San Diego, I think it is. And they're all just hot guys and stuff. And we want you to play the lead, Maverick. But as we were shooting out of town in San Francisco, they were having a big headache with controlling the writer-director, Douglas Day Stewart, who had written Blue Lagoon and Officer and a Gentleman, but they always had wanted someone like Taylor Hackford to direct the film, and he would not give up he was determined to direct his first film. And there were a lot of problems with him, so they were at their boiling point, and we had already started shooting. And they got some news from Paramount that another project they were developing with Stallone, and then he walked off the project, was about a cop from Detroit, a guy from Detroit, Beverly Hills Cop. And they had just gotten interest from Eddie Murphy. And they were like, woo, let's go back down to L.A. and meet Eddie. And that's it. From that point on, they were on that movie and left us to rot out in the hinterlands of San Francisco. It was a beautifully shot and very moody, if you ever get a chance to see it. A lot of people that reach out to me and say, that movie, it didn't get a lot of play. Right, because when we finished it and it was ready to go, they did a little bit of a campaign with me and her and great photography and then nothing. They opened in very few theaters, and we were second the first weekend, and then we were second the second weekend, and then kind of fizzled out. No push from the studio.
Let me ask you something. You know, that happens to you, and before that, you're getting good reviews. Scarface is getting bad reviews. How do you keep confident? I know you're an actor; it's what you love, but you know it's not like if you go out and you ask someone for their phone number and they say no. This shit's getting thrown in your face, and you're seeing it, and you know the product is good, and you know you've done good. So what kept you going? Just the love of acting?
I just believe that if I met up with the right project, with the right director and story, and it was a studio film, that chances are that things go smoothly, and as opposed to what I've been through, which was with Thief of Hearts anyway, my first starring role. I mean, every scene almost, and they shot me beautifully, and you know, it was like a formula. It was what they call high end, or anyway, high something product that they were doing at the time. It's got to be high. Oh gosh. Anyway, we had all of that, and it didn't work. And I knew that it's like, and I could talk to the people at the studio. Two of the executives that approved the movie jumped. Katzenberg went to Disney, and Don Steele became head of Columbia. And Don and Jerry were like, we're doing the movie, but we cast Tom Cruise. He was young. He's younger than you, and he's kind of. But we would like to see you for the role of Maverick, and Iceman. And I read the script, and it seemed kind of predictable, the romance, and to me, it just was. And the role of Iceman on paper, I was like, I don't want to be that asshole. I probably should have, maybe, because I would have had an opportunity to show colors that I hadn't shown before, but it was so hard to keep going. I just kept believing that, okay, next one. The next one's going to be I can't be that unlucky. I can't be that cursed that every film has a problem that's out of my control. That's the other thing. I sometimes admired people like George Clooney, who immediately got into producing. Immediately, as soon as he had a little bit of fame and recognition, he started developing projects, and I was too busy with my personal life, and it was a lot of my energy was devoted to that, and I only have myself to blame because I stepped into it and I didn't know how to get out, and so I didn't develop projects. I had a big conversation with Warren Beatty when he saw Thief of Hearts, and he talked to me and he said, "You could be the next me. But you have to be really careful what you select, what you do, and if you have any favorite stories or novels, or start developing them yourself." He started when he was, before he was 30 years old, and he produced Bonnie and Clyde. Yeah, so I didn't, and I did keep going. I had a lot of frustration.
But you also, the funny thing is though, you had frustration, but you look at your IMDb, you were still working. Now it may have not been of what the projects you have wanted to or envisioned, but as an actor, you were considering yourself lucky because, not lucky, but you have the talent, but you were working a lot. And that's something that even if it's TV, that was something that you've worked over the years. So that's what I want to get to now, like with Ray Donovan. Okay, I want to talk about Ray Donovan because your character was great in that. And that was a great movie. And once again, like Scarface, they aren't Ray and Avi, they're not like these great people, but you like them. And that's what that mold, you like him. You want to see Avi kick someone's ass. You want to see Ray. So how did Ray Donovan come about? Because that was someone where people my age were like, oh yeah, well, we knew your career. We know, it's like anything. We saw Scarface. We got Stephen Bauer. We know your name. But then a younger generation who probably getting to know you from Scarface, so all of a sudden like, well, who is this guy? So how did Ray Donovan come about for you?
And playing a character that's not an American or Spaniard. They had in mind a big Russian, like a bear, a big Russian who would be his guy. And I went in and they're like, you're not that, envision something bigger. And I went in like in the first week. But the writer of the series, she was really the supervisor writer. She wrote a lot of the scripts in the beginning. We did 5 seasons. The sixth one, without me, they shipped me off to Colombia because I got in trouble with the law. And he tells me, you can never come back, Avi. And I was crying, and he's, it was a beautiful scene in season 5. Anyway, we did a lot of episodes, but it was, again, magical casting. The writing was phenomenal. Like, it was after, was it after Breaking Bad? It was after Breaking Bad had already started killing and people noticing the writing and the acting, the choices, the casting and direction, all that. So Ray Donovan was like, this is as good as the best things that were establishing themselves on cable. And Bitterman knew me because she wrote a movie called Primal Fear that I did in Chicago with Richard Gere. And she knew me and she really liked me. And then a few years later, 10, 15 years later, she was the executive producer and the writer of Ray Donovan. So magically, that was a role that Leah had to play. It was his time to become a stronger presence. He was already accomplished in Broadway and stage actor and Shakespeare, but his roles in movies had not really caught people's eye that much. This was the role, and it wasn't a movie. It wasn't a feature. It was something that was going to be long range, episode after episode, so you get to develop the characters. So once he's in, they've got a show on Showtime, and they still haven't found the big bear, Russian bear. And she goes, bring Stephen Bauer in, ask him if he can do an Israeli accent. And they, yes, of course I can. What do you think? And who do you think I am? And so I went in, I read a scene, and they were all, yeah. Should we call Liev? Yeah, he's nearby. Bing, they pick up the phone, call Liev. And they go, we got Stephen Bauer here, and he is perfect for Avi. Would you come in and read with him? we can get this done today. It was late the last day before they begin. And so he came in, big guy, and very nice. And we read through the scene, and I did the thing, and I talked to him like this, the thing, and ended, and all the execs, the consultants and everything were there, and they went, yeah. I mean, we Liev, how do you feel? And he goes, he's perfect. And I said, wow, yeah. And they go, okay, well then let's do it. That was it. I went in, I auditioned, and I was Avi, the Avi that would fit with Ray Donovan, who is the quiet man and doesn't say much. And I'm always dancing around them like, hey, don't do this, I'll check it out first, So it develops over the seasons, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And every day I get people that just binged it finally. And they're like, this is masterful. It's just brilliant. Every episode is, it's like, it's so strong. If you ever get a chance to actually watch a few in a row or watch.
Oh, I've binged it. That's funny. I remember, I forget what season it was, but they played, it was when Ray jumped off the building or whatever, but they played Rock and Roll Suicide by David Bowie. And I kept listening to that song. I kept saying to my Amazon, my Alexa, saying, play that song. Because it was such a great scene. And that song fitted so perfect. And that's that show. I mean, I would watch it. And then me and my wife would watch it. When it started when I was in L.A. And then she moved out to L.A. and we would watch it. And yeah, it was one of those shows. It's one of those shows you look forward to. You're like, oh shit, Sunday night, we got it. And I would sit there and I would stream it on East Coast when I was out in the West Coast. I stream on the East Coast HBO so my friends wouldn't ruin it on Facebook and go, hey, did you see what happened to Ray Donovan? And you're like, asshole, I didn't see it yet. You're 3 hours ahead of me. But oh yeah, it's one of those shows. It is just the way it's shot. It's sleek. That's how you can describe it. Sleek, but it's sleek but intelligent.
Intelligent, and it's also devastating. The stuff that happens, even the interpersonal relationships. Him and his dad, him and his brothers, him and her, him and his wife. And I remember there's an episode where she goes, Ray, you gotta do something. You just can't keep everything in. And he goes, look at you. You don't even have a friend. And he goes, well, it's Avi. And she goes, Avi? Avi's not your friend. He works for you.
Now, for Avi, did you do your stunts? Because there's a lot of fighting. I mean, so did you have any background in martial arts or anything? Or did they have to sit there and say, did you have to go through training for that?
They did teach me a lot of the Israeli Krav Maga, and I knew I would have to at some point show it, and I wasn't prepared that I would get the shit kicked out of me by 5 big Russians in the 4th season or something, because they want him to come in and to an office building, and they want to talk to him. And he goes, I'm going. And I go, no, you're not. No, you're not. No, I'm going to go. And he goes, Avi, just be careful. Okay. And I go, and suddenly they ambush me, and they have guns on me. And I drop my gun. The moment I drop my gun, boom, somebody kicks me in the ribs. And then they kick me on the floor, and they kick me in the head. I had to keep rolling back and forth, and it was choreographed, of course. And the director, he told me, he said, we have these pads for your rib cage. And I said, no, it'll make me look too blousy. Yeah, it's so stupid. I said, I'm good. They know what they're doing. let's go over it. I turn this way, you kick me. I turn this way, the other one, guy kicks me. And you pull your punches. You pull your kicks, too. Well, one of them was not very experienced, and he was Russian. And he was a big guy, and he was number 3 kick. And as I rolled into him, boom, he kicked me right in behind the ear. I almost blacked out. And then I rolled back, boom, and the other guy kicked me in the rib cage. And they finished, and I'm left like in a crumpled thing. And the director says, stop. And he goes, are you okay? Are you all right? Did you get kicked for real? I go, yeah, I think one of them missed me when it didn't pull his boot. And I was suffering for a while. It hurt my back. It hurt my thing. And that, I was going to say live and learn. That's something I should have learned way before in my career. But I, for some reason, felt like these are real pros, and I don't need rib cage pads. So, but it was so much fun to do, to come in, even though I have, a few scenes in each episode. But all the scenes that I had with him were so much fun because he just is not smile at me, even though I'm like, I'm your friend, don't do this. And he say, Avi, I don't need you to tell me that. And he's just not like even like bad, not like a smile. I was like, smile, don't you love me? But
now,
it
was that written, or could you improv on that?
I think that mostly we had to stick to the script or stop and change it. Ask to change it to from what felt clunky, and he's very good for that, Liev. And the directors were always very amenable, but they had to make a call to the writer and ask them if it's okay to go to, because there were, the week before shooting, the entire week was devoted to, like football teams. After the Sunday, you get a Monday off, and then boom, Tuesday you're at practice and working on the next opponent. Well, that's what we did. You'd read. We'd have a table reading with John Boyd and Bunchy and all of them. And in the table reading, you don't really have to do a performance. You're sort of reading it for the first time. But I would read ahead while they were having other scenes, and I say, "Oh, here's my first scene. Oh, that's great. That's great. Oh, I'm so and I'd be ready when my scene started, and I'd crack up the writers, crack up everybody. Everybody would laugh because the whole Avi thing is it's so Israeli, it's so LA Israeli. The guys who are like, America, like this easy. I'm gonna make millions, And so I knew these guys. That helped me with the role, is that I dealt with some guys that were guys. There were these guys, they all had shaved heads. It was a wonderful experience, really, really wonderful. And I've been in line at the airport, in line for TSA or something, and I'll be talking to Jen like this. She's talking softly. I try not to speak loud, and somebody from behind says, "Excuse me, well, are you Avi?" And I said, "Yes." From the back of my head, and they go, your voice. Are you Israeli? And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm actually not." No. How did you learn how to speak like us? I said, yeah. But it's a really beautiful character, and I'm glad that a lot of people have seen it after its original.
Well, what happened? Why did Avi leave? I mean, was it that they said, okay, we're taking the story a different way? Or, did you know you were going to be not in the last season?
I got very sick after I had the kicking incident. I was going through like a hard time, And I guess it showed at work that I was in pain, and I really didn't want to use any pain medicine, any painkillers, but once in a while, if somebody had some, I would take something very, very minor for pills, and I guess I didn't look good because I was not happy at home. And I would look forward to going to work, but the damage that my body was going through this, and I couldn't fix it. It couldn't take time out to fix it, to see a chiropractor or a surgeon. And it would bother me for years after that until I finally met a surgeon who dealt with athletes, and he solved my problem. He put a little incision, and he put a titanium dice, the size of a dice, inside, separated a L4 and 5 vertebrae, which were jamming jamming against the sciatic nerve, and it was constant pain. So I'd have this expression of pain on my face a lot. And I think that the writers had this great idea with the following the season where the artwork, we recovered the artwork, and the artwork, why it was so important. There wasn't like masterful pieces. And he figured out, he turned it around and cut the back, with just paper on a frame, on a big piece, cut it open, and there's packets and packets of heroin and fentanyl. And that's why they wanted it. The Russians wanted it so bad. And so they start the next season saying, Avi's becoming a problem. And we don't know what it is, but he's just acting funny, and he doesn't look good. And so they took advantage of that fact that it gave them a storyline. And then the FBI guy arrests the other son, the brother, Bunchy, and they go to John Boyd, and they say, yeah, well, we can let him go, but you got to do us a favor. What is it? He goes, you got to take Avi out. And he's like, no, I can't do that. And they go, well, then your son will sit in jail until you decide to do something good. They say, and the guy says, Avi is a problem. We think he's on something. And of course, we couldn't tell them that we had recovered all that fentanyl. And this is before anybody knew about fentanyl, but the doctors did. So what they did was they gave us these great. Finally, in the series, I had known John Boyd. He'd been like a mentor to me for years before, but we never got to work together. And so when he was cast, and I was like, God, Doc, I wonder if I'll ever get a scene just with him. And there it was. They wrote this whole sequence where he has to kidnap me from a strip bar near the airport in LA. And I'm like this, I'm really messed up. And he takes my keys, and I walk out, and I go, hey, what happened to my keys? And he said, boom, boom, and he puts me in it. And opens the trunk and throws me in the trunk. And I start yelling, hey, please don't do this. And he's driving out to Santa Clarita, at the Simi Valley, out there. Just incredible day that we had. But I was really focused, and I really wanted to make that connection. I wanted to show John, well, it's a very important scene because it's a turnaround for him, for John, because I'm singing Hebrew songs in the trunk the whole way, driving him crazy. And then when he opens the trunk, I climb out and I go, you really don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. Don't you understand? You kill me, you're next. And he goes, how do you know that? And I go, look what we're dealing with. They want to kill you, but they want you to do them the favor of getting rid of me. They knock us all off one by one until they get to your son, until they get to Ray. And he's holding the gun on me, and I'm on my knees begging. And I start telling a story about it's about death and making the right choice. And he goes, okay, stop. Just all right, I don't want to hear this. You can't tell anybody about this. You got to go hide. Okay? I'm telling them that I took care of it. But you have to not show your face anywhere. Of course not. No, I'll protect you. So that was the scene. And then there's another scene. I get into a shootout with the feds because I'm trying to sell some of the stuff off to dope dealer. And they ambush us, and I get into a firefight, boom, boom, and I shoot one of the FBI agents. Oh, my God. We did that night. So I had plenty to do. It wasn't like they wrote me out. They had a big decision to make because suddenly they weren't just going to do season 6 in L.A. And Liev, who lives in New York and does not want to live in L.A., but he's married and she lives in L.A., and she should become a huge star with the movie Impossible, which is really amazing, right? An amazing film. And so, but she's a movie star, which he isn't, but he's making whatever he's making an episode. I was making a lot of money from my, appearances in the show, but I had a really good deal. But his deal must have been ridiculous enough to buy, houses and whatever you want to, do. And they had 2 little boys, and she wanted them with her, but she did have to travel. And he would come every February or so to LA, rent a house, live in this house, and that was close enough to the studio where he could drive, or they would drive him. And he just hated it. And he would tell me, too. One day we were at lunch, and I go, how's it going? And he said, I don't want to do this any longer. I said, what? And he goes, I live in New York. And now Naomi moved to New York with my kids, and I want to be there. I don't want to be spending 6 months of my life out here alone in a house with a housekeeper, and a personal assistant, and it's just, that's no life for me. I don't know what I'm going to do. Soon after that, I heard if it was going to happen, they had to give him what he wanted. And what he wanted was shoot the show in New York, move Ray Donovan, the storyline, the characters, or some of the characters, to New York. And they said, we can't like bring you like out of exile, because everybody thought, well, if they do another season, basically they left it open for me to figure out a way to get back to the States, even though he says you can never come back. And I said, no. And so it was sort of but suddenly it's going to be New York, and I thought it was kind of far-fetched if I suddenly showed up in New York.
Right.
And as a plot line, it's so they took the 3 brothers and John, and I think they even took what's her name? Who was my partner?
I can't think of her name.
Anyway, she's a great, very strong actress. and we got along great. And Avi got, left out. And the one season they did in New York, and it was so hard, so difficult, the shooting, even the storyline about an attorney and a woman. They got Susan Sarandon for the whole season, but it wasn't compelling in the way that it had been. And they said, "That's it. We're not doing more. We're not doing any more." So without Avi, they tanked.
Yeah. So okay, you mentioned Breaking Bad earlier. How did that come about? Because people know, and that's a show. My wife had not seen it, and I remember we were in LA, and it was on like a Memorial Day. They had a marathon, and she binged it, man. Like she watched it like in a week, and because people were doing that. But how did that come about? And did you think that people really know you, that character, from they know it? So how did Breaking Bad come about?
Eladio, the character Vince Gilligan contacted my agent. I was like, I'd see it, and I thought, how do I get on that? How do I get on that? God, I wonder if they know about me. And it turned out that Vince Gilligan very much knew about me, and he was planning. He was planning, like, in the near future, he's going to find a role for Steven Bauer. He's a fanatic of Scarface. He loves Scarface. And he's a funny guy, It's the humor in Breaking Bad is ridiculous. It's so funny. But it's always edgy. It's always so good. And boom, out of the blue, then my agent says, Vince Gilligan, the creator of Breaking Bad, he has a role in mind for you. He'd love for you to come in and meet him. He wants to meet you. And I said, wow, yeah. What's the role? We don't know. He said there's two roles. It could be for the next episode, but it could be one that is for a few episodes. And lo and behold, it wasn't. He did think of me for the next episode because it was there. They had it, and it was a character, but it was only in one episode. And he thought, I'm not going to waste you. But you have to wait. It'll be like in about 4 episodes. We're introducing this character, Don Eladio. And I said, oh, okay. And he said, and you speak only in Spanish, and we will have subtitles in every one of your scenes. Wow. And so that's easy for me. And I thoroughly enjoyed the character and the direct Vince. When I first started being it, like in rehearsal, they were all, I would say, do you think it's too big? And he said, no, it's perfect. You're hitting the right balance between comedy and real darkness, sinisterness. I said, yeah, of course. And Don Eladio was born. And it gave me a chance to work with 2 actors I had worked with earlier in my career. When I did the series Wise Guy, and it was canceled by CBS, and after three episodes airing, because I told you the story, no? Because the CBS had a grudge and sort of a bet with Stephen Cannell, who created and loved Wise Guy, and he told me you were my original choice for Wise Guy, but your agent said you weren't doing television. And he said, and that's how Kenny Wall became the character. But he got too big for his britches, I think, and he started becoming a problem to them, and he gained a lot of weight, and he was very good and he was very strong presence. And I knew Kenny, and suddenly he was out, and they canceled it, but they would consider putting it back on if they could get a name, somebody. And Steve Cannell came back to me and said, you want to do it? You want to do this character? It is amazingly complex. And the character is called Michael Santana, and it's a Cuban lawyer, Cuban-American lawyer, who is rising, and he ends up defending a drug dealer. No, not defending, prosecuting a drug dealer, but he presents evidence that was not good. And the drug dealer had something to do with that because he had powerful lawyers too. So he beats me, and I'm tainted by the bar. I'm disbarred. And so when the movie starts, when the first episode starts, but I still have Donovan Banks. He's still the guy in the tweeds, in the tweeds, and with that great voice and great actor. And so I get Jonathan, and he right away we strike up a great friendship. And well, anyway, it's canceled. It gets canceled. And even in the middle of the season where we had moved from the Miami plot line after 6 episodes to Vancouver for the next chapter. And by the way, the first chapter, my mentor, who wants to make me his son, and I'm undercover, and he's laundering money, and he's bringing arms in, and he's like a big time, big real estate guy, or a good guy in Miami, Maximilian Schell. And Maximilian Schell to me is like a god, like for watching The Young Lions and Judgment at Nuremberg. My goodness. And there he was, toe to toe with me, and invited me to his house. He gave me a beautiful book about a play that he does every year on stage in Austria. He's Austrian. So that was the special guest star in the first installment. And then we moved to Vancouver, and it's Billy D. Williams. And I got to do these powerful, like, face-to-face scenes with him, and he's so great. He's so great. And he's just like a man. He's amazing. He's a great guy and a great actor. And then they cut us off. So another just disillusionment, another like punch in the gut from forces that I cannot control. I was so upset when they canceled the show. Well, we were shooting and just said, everybody go home. CBS is canceling the show. And Stephen Cannell wanted the show to continue to be Wise Guy. And Jeff Sagansky said, you don't have a big enough audience. You've got Stephen Bauer now. Use the name of the character, Santana. Call the series Santana. And Cannell said, no, it's Wise. It is Wise Guy. He's just the new Wise Guy. And Sagansky, it's like this thought process that sort of ruins a lot of good stuff. Some genius makes a decision that's arbitrary, and he won't listen to advice, and he wants to install himself as a king for as long as he can. And so he was the king of CBS, and he basically told Cannell that the show's going to fail, in spite of having Stephen Bauer. The show's going to fail. Nobody wants Wise Guy, and and we were determined to prove him wrong. So what does he do to make sure that he wins? He puts us on Saturday night at 10 o'clock when there is no demographic home watching a show like Wise Guy. No, perennially for 10 years or so, Golden Girls is 10 o'clock Saturday night, because that's who's home.
Right.
Or their audience. And it was so transparent, the fuck you that he was doing to us. And I went on Arsenio Hall twice to show, scenes and build, pump up the coming episode. The first episode on Saturday night, I go, oh yes, Saturday night, but maybe it can be recorded. I know everybody's out on Saturday night, except Golden Girls, and of course they killed us first Saturday night. Oh wow, man! So immediately, when you love something and you know it's good, and you're put in a position where you really don't have all the opportunity to reach the audience that it's made for. But you have nothing to say about it. And we said right away, move us, please. You know that Golden Girls is going to win. We have no chance. But Wednesday night at 10 o'clock, Tuesday night, 10 o'clock, just like, give us a chance. Move us to any other slot but that one. It's like, no. Like, I told you, Cannell. I told you it would
what
fail.
an ass. So you mentioned Jonathan Pryce. So that's who you worked with in Jonathan Banks. Sorry, that's who you worked at in Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad, he shows up and he's Mike. Mike, and finally I get on the set with him, and he goes, Bauer. And I started doing my thing as Don Eladio, and he just, and they're cracking up on the set. The camera guys are cracking up, and they go, my God, they're so fucking good. Let's just do one more and just do whatever you want in this. But I was working with another really close friend that I didn't see often, but I was with him on stage in the play Ballman Gilead, and I was off Broadway, Circle and Square, and then we opened a new theater, the Manila Lane Theater, and we ran for 3 months. And I got there, I was in that cast because someone else was playing the role that I did, and he got an offer to do Police Blues or New York Blues, and he took it, and I got a phone call from John Malkovich, whom I had known, because he also worked with my manager, Phyllis Carlisle. So we all got to know each other, and Sinise and his wife, and John and his wife, rest in peace, Glenn Headley. And he calls me and he goes, Rocky, you think you could get here tomorrow and step in for Jimmy's role in the play, and I'll make sure you have one rehearsal with the cast. That's it. And he says it's just rolled like there's all these actors on stage. There's all these characters. It's about the Upper West Side in the 70s and the devastation of the drugs and then the prostitution, pimps, and just low-life characters on the Upper West Side. This is the 70s. And it was bad, really bad. And it's a beautiful play by Langford Wilson. But John Malkovich was directing it. And Gary's in it. Gary Sinise is in it. And Laurie Metcalf before she went on to television. And gosh, she was brilliant. And Giancarlo Esposito was in it. He had one of those roles of one of the street people. And him and I, in the beginning, as the audience come in, we greet the audience, and he's offering joints to the audience, so we struck up a friendship there. And then we did a few movies together over the years where we were both in, and sometimes we had scenes together, and lo and behold, he's on. He's great. This great character in Breaking Bad. And when I'm on the set, I'm working with him, and I'm teaching him the phonetic spelling, the phonetic pronunciation of the Spanish, which he really didn't speak Spanish, but he took it on, and he, because every scene, every character that's in my scenes has to speak Spanish. It was so great. It was just so much fun, and it didn't end. It didn't end. I die in the pool. I drink the poisoned tequila, and the cigar falls out of my hand, and that was incredible. I had to do that. They tried to warm the water because it's New Mexico, and it was cold outdoors at that hacienda, and so I had to go headfirst into the water. Not headfirst, actually, faceplant, like this. And so the cameramen are down below me, and one of them says, "Do you think you can keep your eyes open as you hit the water?" And I go, "Yeah, I'll try that. I've always swam underwater with my eyes open. I just had that lucky." And so I did it, and they all said, "Oh," and they dried me off and got my clothes off and stuff, and everybody, wow, and how was it? It was great. It was great. Do you think you could do one more, Steve? just to have some safety. So they dressed me back. I said, "Yeah, of course." And I did it twice. I don't know which take they used, but I die in that, and I thought that was it, right? And Vince dressed me in yellow and canary yellow in my first scenes, and I was like mortified with the costume ladies. They say, "Well, he likes this one, this yellow thing." I go, "I don't wear yellow. I'm not wearing that. I'm not. What's the other?" And it's like a deep blue. I said, "Can I try that on?" And they were going to send him a photograph back in L.A. and he goes, "But he wants to see you in the yellow anyway, so we got to get a good photo of that." And I'm thinking, okay, they send it and show up on the set, and the girls come up to me and they go, "Guess what you're wearing?" Yellow. I go, "I look like a banana, a large banana." But it was perfect. He has a sense of humor, and that's part of it. And so it didn't end when I died. My appearances, because they created Better Call Saul, which takes place 10 years or 15 years before. And there's Eladio. Before it got crazy, but all those scenes with Mark Margolis, bless his soul, who I knew from Scarface, of course. And Mark Margolis was great. He was a really wonderful, grumpy old man. And but he meant it with a sense of humor, but he also meant it. And I'd go into the trailer, to the makeup trailer, and I'd say, Mark, how are you? Good morning. And he'd say, "What's good about it, Steven, why are you so happy?" I said, I'm always happy coming to work.
Now with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, did a whole new generation of people start recognizing you?
Yes, absolutely. And I really tried to get myself in a kind of shape where you could buy it. You could buy physically that this was that same guy that was kind of punchy and big guy in Breaking Bad later, because it's 10 years later. So 10 years earlier, I'm much thinner. My hair is really dark, and they dressed me differently. I was Don Eladio already, and I was already like Kingmaker, and but with those people. And that was really fun because the new director, the writer, Peter, He's the co-creator of Better Call Saul, and he loved it. He loved doing the scenes with me because I'd give him all this different stuff, and I'd say, "Is that too big? Is it too much?" And he goes, "No, you're big. You want to be big. That's who you are." And I go, "Okay, just check. If you let me do what I'm doing, what I want to do, I'm gonna give you things that are unexpected." And they loved it. So I got to do three of the seasons. The last one was really cool. There was a meeting of all the cartel guys, and my uncle Dio is ringing the bell. Ding, 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 ding. You know, he's incredible job, incredible acting, where he's all twisted and he rings the bell and yes or no, and I finally send him to his room, and I turn to the guys and I go, "Yeah, it's driving me crazy with that ding, 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 ding." And so you see those episodes; they're very cool.
That's a great show. Now I got to ask you, give me just a few highlights when you look back. Highlights of your career when you think about it, because you've had a very long career. You've worked on so many shows. I mean, you've constantly worked. You've been in an iconic movie. You've been in, those series were all, critically acclaimed with Ray Donovan, Breaking Bad. What is a few highlights that you sit there and go, "I'm blessed, man. I've had a fucking great career"?
Recently, and hopefully it'll be a highlight, but it certainly was to work on with this director, Roger Campbell, and he took on this trilogy called Beautiful Disaster, and then Beautiful Wedding and Beautiful Baby, about these two people who, oh no, that's Angel Salazar calling. Can you believe that? Chi-Chi. No, I can't do it right now. I don't know how to do this. Hold them. No, dismiss. All right. There we go. We're back. And so, and in 6 months, it comes out January 14 or something in theaters. And I have a great comic role. He wanted to see me do something really, extravagant and eccentric, and I did, and so it's totally different. It's a total departure from anything I've done. So that's a highlight that, looking back, will be most recent. But that's an easy thing for me to answer because I have these beautiful, vivid memories of movies like Sword of Gideon that I did. It was one of the first HBO movies, and it was after Scarface, and I read the script, and it was based on a true story about a young Israeli recruited who's a great soldier, tank commander, but he gets recruited into the Mossad to track down to build a team and track down, I had a list of the 11 terrorists in the world who were all responsible for killing innocent people, including two of them who were involved in the kidnapping, hostage taking of the athletes in Munich, which ended up botched, and they all died. And so, and I read this, and I have very strong Jewish roots and connection. And I thought, oh my God, I shoot in Israel and Rome and London and New York, and this character is so complicated, and it's perfect for me. And I wanted a meeting with the director right away, and he talked to me, and I said, I am Abner. I can do it, and I can do the accent if you want me to. And he goes, I don't know that we're going to use accents. We may just have you speak English. I said, I can do it, And he said, all right. I said, I can do this better than any American actor that's up for it because I have a strong connection to the land, to the state of Israel. And because his brother died in the Holocaust, and my grandfather went to Havana, to Cuba, and that's how my mom was produced. And so on my mom's side, because I'm Jewish, but I'm also very much I'm very much a Jesus person too. Always have been, like a fan, and holding his life up as a role model. So I get the part, and I'm off to Israel, and I find out that I'm working with Rod Steiger. Again, another like mind-blowing, like casting opportunity for me. And I just, those days, that was something that was like, oh, this is going to be so great. I'm going to make it great. It's going to be so great. But unfortunately, it was among the first of the HBO productions that was on this new cable thing, HBO. And it showed once or twice, and that was it. There was no commotion and no nominations. And I mean, if you see it, you'll be nuts. I mean, yeah, my role, and I was very young, and right after 2 years after Scarface, and it came like a drop from heaven because of the bad experience with Thief of Hearts, and then. So I could do this, and of course it takes all this time, and I get to work with Rod Steiger, and I worked with Colleen Dewhurst, who played Golda Meir, and it was one day. She worked one day, and it's one scene, and she talks to me and a few of the generals before embarking on this thing, and she does a speech, a monologue about Jews. Who are we? And for years we have been persecuted in there. And she goes, and now we are not turning the other cheek. And that's where you've been selected. You are the vengeance. You are the sword of Gideon. And that's the name of the book, Sword of Gideon. And that's the name of the movie. Actually, the book is called Vengeance by a Canadian Jew named George Jonas, who had intimate conversations and tape conversations with the real Avner once he got sick of the hunting down of people and placing bombs in their cars and seeing and knowing that they have children, also. And this guy really walks away, and he has to leave Israel. And those times, it's just like just abandoning your country, and he went, and he lived in New York, and anyway, so it's a real character, and I talked to George Jonas about the real guy a lot. So if you see it, you'll see it's a beautiful thing, and I got to work with and Colleen was incredible, an incredible actress that she was, and she made me cry. She's talking right to me. She said, you. And I just like teared up. And the director, Michael Anderson, who is an Englishman who lived in Canada, and he directed Around the World in 80 Days. So this is Michael Anderson at 80, and he's spry, a very spry Englishman. And Stephen, he said, I know she's powerful, and I know you feel it, but you're a soldier. Don't show tears. You cannot show your emotions. There'll be plenty of time for that. And others see, but not right now. So I had to buck up, and just like when she's looking at me, looking through me, oh wow! I'm a soldier.
It's amazing. You have so much fond memories of these movies, and that's what's great because you remember it and you remember the detail. I want to ask you, because we got to wrap up soon, you got to tell me, because you have a good memory, You got to tell me a really good story from when you were shooting Scarface. When you were shooting it, you told me how you created the Mang. You said that was you, the Mang, and the other one. But tell me a really good story when you were shooting Scarface, because it's a big production and you're with Pacino. I mean, I know you guys, but you're with fucking Pacino. I mean, tell me a killer Scarface story.
It might sound disparaging to an actor that I admire very much, and he's a very nice man. He's still alive, Murray Abraham. And so he got cast as sleazy Omar. Yeah, Omar's okay. That was a in joke between us, because you go, I'm putting Omar in charge of you. And already we had gone through this scene, which is the first one where he ends up throwing a cigarette at him, and he says, so we're shooting it. It's supposed to be Miami, but it's like the coldest night of the year in LA. We're still shooting in LA, under the freeway in downtown. And they build this sort of Latin American cafe where we're washing dishes. And then we have a little break, and we're drinking Cuban coffee, like I told him, and I taught him about the ritual. And
what's the ritual? What's the ritual?
Ritual of having a little shot of cafecito, a little shot of coffee, like during the day, a couple of times during the day. You stop at these places, they're everywhere. Can I have a cafecito? Cool. Or they give you a full coffee, thing, and you take it with you and you sip it, and it gives you energy. It also makes you a little jumpy, but if you have to balance it out. And so, but it's something that Cubans do as a relaxation also, where they can share a couple of coffee, and it's usually like a double shot. Right, but you savor it because it's sweet and it's so good. It's coffee and sugar, basically, but just the right amount where it just goes down like syrup. And I told them about it, how you enjoyed it and everything. So if you remember, first he's washing dishes and stuff, and he's complaining. I go, I know this guy's coming. I met him. He's got to offer us a job. He's got a job for us. And he goes, this big shot friend, better come through. Well, to make it all come more like crazy, the coldest night of the year is like 42 degrees in LA. And we're in t-shirts, very hot, supposedly very hot. Little stand-up place, washing dishes, and it's sweating. And sweating. And then, if you remember, we're called by the main guy, by the owner, and he goes, 2 guys waiting for you out there. You better make it back. Come back quick. And I go, that's it. That's El Mono, Omar. And so later we had the thing where so we're freezing, and we have blankets over us, and then as we get ready, they get ready. Okay, get them ready. Take out the blankets. Sorry, guys. And the makeup department, the girls, they go, okay, this is gonna hurt. I'm gonna spritz you everywhere. So you see the scene. I'm sweating to death. I'm sweating, and I'm combing my hair back like that, and he's grumpy, and he's freezing also. So we go, ready, go. And then you got to go, I don't feel it. I'm hot. But it was like this. You were like turning to ice. And we would do it over and over because the exit. Oh, but right before then, there's that little shot that establishes us and our relationship. And I said the lines that Oliver wrote, but we worked on them, and I said, I really want to say something at the end of this. And just to bug Tony, just to bug him, to get him to laugh, or because he's so grumpy, and I'm so upbeat, and I'm sipping coffee like this, and he's in the foreground of the shot, and he's sitting like this, half on the counter, and he's going, oh, my hand, and I go, and he goes, look at that, look at across the street, there's a disco, and they play some extras and girls in dresses. And he goes, look at that. Look at that. I'm sipping coffee, and I go, look at that. Look at her. She's beautiful or something. And he goes, yeah, and look at that punk with her. And I go, oh, come on. And he goes, what's he got that I don't have? And I said, well, for one thing, he's very handsome. And I just crack up, but I would contain it. And we did a few takes, and Al he always told me, do not make me laugh. Do not make me laugh, because then I can't stop. He said, I had a problem on stage. John Cazale used to make me try to crack me up. And right before my monologue, he'd be on stage, face with his back to the audience, and I'd come out and he'd go, he would give me the finger, and I'm trying to get, or he would do some funny face or say something to me as I walk out on stage. Anyway, he would start laughing. He said a few times I laughed on stage, and then I had to just collect myself. But no, get rid of that. No.
You're there.
I don't even my phone. So let me go on. So he's really grumpy. And so I added that line, basically. Well, for one thing, he's very handsome. And he would look at me and try not to look at me, because I had a smirk on my face. And I was like, he's very handsome. And he's like, fuck you. All right, so we started that way. Now we move on to the car. And Omar's in the passenger seat. And he's like bopping to this music. And he was just funny. And his choices were funny. But it was a great character. He was very consistent. But he works out those things. He works them out and prepares them. They're moments, and he prepares everything. Like when he says, you listen to me. I'm the one user. And he does this. And goes, and every single take is the same. He would do the same thing. He matched everything. And we were impossible to get replicate the take before if it was good. To do that again, no way. Because he's in the moment and I'm in the moment and I'm watching him, so I play off him. If he decides to go rogue, I'm going to catch him, or I'll just respond. So we walking out there freezing, pretending we're hot, and he goes, "I got something for you," and I'm really eager, right? And I go, "Really, you got something for me?" I go, "What is it?" And he goes, "Marijuana, 2 kilos. You go and bring it back." $50. Oh no, you get $100 each. And I go, oh, that's good. And I would look at him, I turn my back to the camera and I would look at him and go, that's good. And he'd look at me like, be like, don't be a sucker. Like, let me handle this. And he starts speaking and he goes, $100 each. He goes, that's not the going rate on a boat. And he goes, first you got to work your way up to 500. Querido. And he goes, well, that's what we did for you in the Rebenga hit. What was that? A game of dominoes? And I'm going, don't ruin this for us. And because I can see him going, it's written that way. But I would have eye contact with him, and meanwhile we're freezing, right? And we can't show it. and he looks funny to us. What he's doing is so quirky and so weird that we both realize it, and I make the mistake of when we go back. Oh, and then he goes, don't you think we could have got two space cadets to do it cheaper too, $50? And then that's when Al goes, "Damn white, didn't you?" And I go, "Come on, don't do that." And he goes, "Oh, what's the matter with you, with this guy?" Anyway, and the scene ends with pissed off, and I follow him. I follow him. What do you have against Colombians? And he goes, "I don't fucking like them." And that's all. And I go, no. He says Colombians, and you do this thing like with your eyes, like what? And he goes, "I just don't like them. I don't trust them." I go, yeah. So the scene ends, and we go back inside and get the blankets on. And I dare to ask him, it's just like out of character, basically in character, I go, "Am I crazy, or is he just acting like really funny?" And Al goes, he looks at me and he goes, Don't even start." And I go, "Oh, so I'm not crazy, right?" What he's doing is, it's everything is so like precise, and it's so weird looking at him. And he goes, "Don't look at him, and don't look at me, because I'm trying to ignore all that, and just stick with the story with my intention, the intention." He goes, "Don't look at me. Don't." I just couldn't help myself. So I go back out there and I'm doing the scene again. We do it, a couple takes, and then suddenly I go, "Omar, this is my friend." And I look at Al. I turn and I look at him, and he's standing there trying to just like that. I go, "Omar, this is my friend, Tony Montana." And Al starts laughing. And I go, sorry. Let's go again. And Al goes like this. And I go, I'm sorry. And it's just, go out there. "Omar, this is my friend, Tony Montana." And then got what's going on? And then Al starts laughing. He starts laughing, and Brian goes, "Is there something that I'm missing? What's going on, guys?" And we're both like, it's him. I mean, we're looking at him, and it's just I've never run into that. And so that happened. And later, when we were introduced and to Bob Loja, to Lopez, and Lopez goes, "I'm going to put Omar in charge of you guys." Omar, and Al goes, he looks at him and he goes, "Yeah, Omar's okay." And he goes, "Okay?" And he goes, "Yeah, he's okay." And so every time we talk about Omar's okay. Yeah. Yeah. So that's one of my great memories of shooting that film. And it's probably the first day of shooting. I think for me, it was the first day, and it was of course cold and it was nighttime in LA, and we were under hardship. And while we were still shooting that scene, I think we were on lunch break, and what do we hear? This highly coveted role in the upcoming Milos Forman got to direct Amadeus on the screen. And who does he choose? Of all the actors that have played it brilliantly, Ian McKellen, notably, and he chooses Omar. and they told us, and I said, no. And Al said, "What do I know?" Just like I go, how did that happen? How does that happen? He is okay. So, and he got nominated. He won the Academy Award, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Famously, then took a knee on stage and gave an oration that he had prepared to the great Dustin Hoffman, I guess, who was in the audience, or giving him his, I don't know, honoring him. So that's one of a million that you'll see in my book when it comes out.
That's
when
awesome.
I get down to writing it. But I really want to see what this comedy. But I just want to add that if you want to see a great movie that also was not pushed and would be very powerful today, if given a chance, with Jason Patric and myself and George Zanza and Don Harvey, Stephen Baldwin was in it. It's about a Russian tank crew that gets separated. Tank that gets separated from its battalion, and it's lost in the Afghan wilderness, and destroyed this village. Just razed the village in the beginning of the movie. And the movie's called The Beast.
Okay.
And I had done the play all in English, both sides speaking English, on stage at the LA Theater Center. It opened the LA Theater Center. We inaugurated it with this play, and everybody loved it. It was called S.W.A.T, which is the word that is a call for sanctuary from your enemy when you take him prisoner. But they didn't want to call the movie the S.W.A.T. But they did want to cast authentically, to have the Russian boys, and their captain, speak English as if you can imagine that it's being translated. They are Russian, yeah. They're speaking Russian among themselves, so they speak normal English. And the enemy, or the home team, are the 4 Afghans who have never seen machinery, a lot of them, and they're superstitious, and they fight amongst themselves, the tribes. And I play the role I did on stage 2 years before. But it took me a while. I had to convince the head of the studio then, Englishman, and then rest in peace, David Putnam. I had to ask for a meeting because they wouldn't see me for any of the Afghan roles. And I said, but I did it on stage. I can do it. And they were like, no, they're trying to find a Middle Eastern actor. Well, they tried. And then they said, okay, you can have your meeting with David Putnam. Try to convince him. And I did. I walked in and I talked to him, and I said, and he says, but how are you going to, that all your dialogue is in Pashto. He goes, I'm going to send you to a coach here in LA tomorrow, and he'll tell me how you do. And he told them that I can grasp it, that I can get the sound of the Afghan. And so I got the role. I was off to Israel again, and that's where we shot it. And it was glorious. Every single day of production was glorious, and we would come home, and when the sun was going down, the moon was coming up, and we had a camp. We were camped in the motels at the Dead Sea Resort, where all the German tourists came to heal their little cuts and stuff. And that's where we were, and we would jump into the Dead Sea and keep one hand out of the water, because if you get the water in your eyes, God forbid, you'll be blind for like an hour. Oh. So you keep one hand out so you can pick your nose or rub, or push the hair back or something. But it was great, the warmth of that water and the healing power of that water after running miles. I had to run miles every day in Afghan sandals and my flowing robes and my headpiece, my headdress, and I have a beard and munition belts and M1, the M1, the Enfield rifle that I had. So, but Jason and I became very, very good friends, and all the other guys too. And it was every single day was an amazing experience, like with Sword of Gideon. And again, everybody thought, well, at least we're going to get some nominations because obviously you're playing a part in another language and you learned it in 3 weeks. Right? But there was an Afghan coach on the set, and he would correct me. I would run through the dialogue, but I needed to be able to, like I have scenes where I blow up and I'm emotional and saying these things phonetically and knowing what they mean, but not concentrating on pronunciation. I had to have a performance. I had to be in character. That was an amazing experience, and nothing came of it. We didn't get nominations. It's a beautiful movie. If you get to see it someday, you'll see, hopefully. So that was the one I didn't want to leave that one out because I felt like, God, he's so good to me to get to play this. Maybe this is the one I'll be known for, playing a foreign, an Afghan. Maybe if it all goes well, and it all went well. We had a very small budget, but the movie was tight, and Kevin Reynolds, a great director, and he was wonderful, and Jason was great. But alas. Well,
I got to tell you this though: you've had an amazing career. You can't complain. I mean, I know there's certain things, but people know you, and I noticed you when I saw you at Waikato that first time, and I bought you at Doers. So. Anyway, man, I want to thank you so much for coming on. It's been great talking to you. We'll do this again down the road when your new movie comes out or whatever, that one's coming out. We'll get together again. And you now on Instagram, you're at the original Stephen Bauer.
Yeah, no, official.
So people go follow Stephen, official Stephen Bauer. Shoe Palace, he has his clothes coming out. Go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can find over 980 episodes. You can email me at coopertalk.net. Twitter, I'm at coopertalk.
Say hello to my little friend. The book by Nat Siegel, with forward by Stephen Bauer.
Yes, so say hello to my little friend. Everyone did that when I was doing comedy. Say hello to my little... Do it for us real quick. Can you say it?
Say hello to my little friend.
See, so people, check out Stephen Bauer. I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guest. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you next time.